Hey there friends, it's Marie here, and I'm taking part in the Save the Crafty YouTuber video hop. We have so many different sponsors for this hop, and make sure you go ahead and comment on each video in the hop, because the more comments you leave, the more chances you have to win a prize. So the Save the Crafty YouTuber video hop is just to expose you guys to lots of different artists that are trying to monetize their YouTube channels and make a little something out of their art. And we always want to come together and support each other. So if you find someone new that inspires you, please consider subscribing and helping them out. So I'm using this stamp set here. This is from Rina, and I love the tropical vibes going on. So I'm going to use this stamp set 3 ways in today's card. And the first way that I'm going to do this today is by some watercolor stamping. So I've done this on my channel before, but it's a really easy concept. I'm using some distress ink on this large stamp here, spritzing it with a little bit of water to get that ink flowing, and then I'm going to stamp it onto my paper. This will result in a sort of a faux watercolor effect, and you can really play around with the ratio of ink to water to make it even more runny or less runny, whatever you want to do. I'm not using any watercolor paper, but you could do that as well, because when I'm doing this watercolor stamping, I'm not really using all that much water. I'm just giving it a quick little spritz there, and then I'm stamping it onto my paper. I do like to hold it for a second or two, just let that water kind of seep into the paper before I lift up the stamp. But there's so many different things that you can do with this technique. I find it works best on a large solid type image. So these leaves here have a lot of surface area to them where you can get that water flowing. If you have a little stamp that's kind of just like a little line drawing or something, doesn't work quite as well. But if you have some of these larger surface areas like these leaves, these work really well to do this watercoloring effect. So you can see here that my stamp platform is getting a little bit wet here. Some of my stamps are not sticking anymore. So when I get to that point with my watercolor stamping, I just take my towel and just wipe away that extra and continue stamping. So I wanted to stamp all along the outside here to make a frame, and I used sort of tropical colors, some bluish greens and some lighter greens, and you can see how fun that watercolor stamping turns out when you're done with it. This is really fun to do with layered stamps as well. Layer a few different colors on top of each other. So I went ahead and I added a sentiment here, and I'm adding some dream drops around the outside because these are just so fun, so pretty, and I wanted a little bit of embellishment without it being too much. So I'm just kind of dropping some of these different dream drops. This is a new color from one of their new Tropical Paradise trends from Tonic Studios. And I'll try to have different product links down in the description if you're interested in checking that out. So you might notice that that hello beautiful sentiment is stamped on that rectangle, and I actually kept the frame that was cut out of. I cut that out of the middle of a card panel, and I'm going to do another card next using the frame that's left over from that card panel. So you can get 2 cards out of one by just cutting out the inside and then using the frame for your next card. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to use that frame and build another card. So here it is. I've cut that rectangle out of the inside, and I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of ink blending. Now my lighting has changed a little bit because I'm doing this in the early morning. I don't always have time to sit down and create several cards at once, so I squeeze it in here and there wherever I can. So I'm ink blending some of this brown color on here onto this frame that I've cut out, and I'm just using Nuvo's hybrid ink. I find these work pretty well for stamping and blending, and I'm just putting on a little bit of this brown color here, getting it all covered so that I can do my next step. I'm going to be doing some ink blending and then blend the same color on top with a stencil, and that gives you a tone-on-tone stenciled look that's really kind of fun and unique, and you can use it for lots of different techniques. I'm going to use it here today to kind of make a textured frame. So whenever I'm doing my ink blending, I just like to pick up a little bit of ink, start off of my paper, and blend it on in small circular motions. And I keep adding layers as I go if I want darker colors. So now that I have that frame all ink blended, I'm taking this stencil, and this stencil coordinates with those stamp sets that we've been using from Rina K. And it's got this sort of, I don't know what you call it, diamond type pattern. It kind of looks like maybe the walls of a tiki hut or something, so I thought that was really fun. And I'm just blending this onto my frame here. I'm using the same color of ink, so like I mentioned before, it's going to be a tone on tone, but where the ink is being applied through this stencil, it's going to be a little bit darker. So you're going to have the same color shining through, but you're going to have a darker tone on top of the lighter tone. And I think it works really good if you want sort of a subtle texture background to your cards. So I'm just shifting the stencil over, lining it up, and doing some more ink blending. And I'm going to do that on the whole frame, and you'll see here that it is finished, covered. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next part of my card. So this card, I'm taking some of these images, stamping them out, and then I'm going to fussy cut them. So you can see here you have some flowers, you have that fun pineapple that we're going to use. There's also an orange stamp set that you can layer. So lots of fun tropical images, and you can just go ahead and layer them up. There's different layering pieces. There's also stencils that go with these stamps, so you can layer the stencil on as well and put some other mediums on top, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that later on in the video. So I'm just getting these images stamped out here, stamping that flower and the pineapple. Again, I'm using my Nuvo hybrid inks. You might have to go ahead and stamp a few times, and that's why I really love my Misty or my stamp platform, because you can keep everything lined up, stamp it several times, and get a really great impression. So after I've got those stamped out, I'm going to add the top of the pineapple, and it fits perfectly right on top. You can add it with some other colors and just stamp out your pineapple. So I've gone ahead and stamped a light green, and I'm going to get a little bit of dark green on the bottom of those leaves just by tapping some dark green onto the bottom of that stamp, and then I'm going to go back in with some lighter color and kind of stamp it on it again, kind of even out some of those colors. So you can get sort of a two-tone stamped effect by just placing your colors in different areas, if that makes sense. And here's that stencil that I was telling you about. It's got some of these layering pieces for those images. So you have this little piece here for the pineapple, and you have a little image for your orange and the inside of the flowers. And I'm going to go ahead and use this stencil with a little bit of this Nuvo Glacier paste. Now this is also a new color for them. This is part of their Tropical Paradise trend, and I can't remember the name of this yellow color, but it was perfect for the pineapple. So I'm going to go ahead and spread that on with my media spatula. This stuff goes on really smooth, and it shines so bright when it's dry, and it's really great for adding little details like this, or even stenciling onto a background. So this stuff is really fun to play with. It's easy to clean up as well. You can use a baby wipe, or you can just take it over to your sink and wash it up, but it's easier to clean it before it dries, so I'd recommend cleaning your stencil and things before it dries. Here is a little bit of the Gina K Glitz gel, is that what it's called? But this is the perfect purple color to go along with the flower that we stamped out. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a sparkly inside using this stencil to stencil on some sparkles on that flower. So now that I've got a lot of pieces stamped and cut out, I'm applying them over my frame, and I've already gone ahead and stamped out that sentiment on the inside here. I didn't show all of that on today's video because I'm trying to squeeze in 3 cards, giving you 3 ideas of what to do with one stamp set. But you can just go ahead and make a little cluster of flowers and your fruit here on the side of your frame, and I think it's really cute, especially with those that shiny gel stenciled over the flowers and the pineapple. It just turned out really well. Now that orange is a circle stamp set, or circle stamp. I just cut it in half, and then you'll have a half of a wedge of an orange. I think it's really fun. So I'm taking some of my Gina K masking paper, and I'm going to go ahead and work with my third card for today. I've used a rectangle die to cut out this rectangle in the middle so that I know that it's completely straight on all four sides, and I'm masking off the inside of my card front. I want to do some ink blending, and I want to leave a frame of white along the outside, so I'm trying to make sure I get it in the middle. And then there's a few areas that didn't get covered with this masking tape, so I used a little painter tape on the edge to cover that as well, because I don't want to get any ink anywhere that I don't want it. I want it in the middle, in the rectangle, where it's supposed to go. So I'm going to go do a little bit of tropical sunset ink blending, and I'm using some yellows, some reds, and some purples. Again, this is the Nuvo hybrid inks. They do blend together well. Sometimes with the hybrid inks, you do have to work with them a little bit longer than you would a distress ink or some other kind of ink. That's just because the hybrid inks, they like to be permanent once you stamp them. You can actually put lots of different mediums over the top, and they won't run. They won't muddy any of your other mediums. You could put like a white Nuvo drop on top of your ink, and it won't tint your Nuvo drop at all, because this ink likes to stay where you put it. So that's really great if you're doing some mixed media, but when you're ink blending, you do have to work with it a little bit more, because it does kind of like to stay where you put it. But you can always get it to blend, and I have a nice blend here of sort of a sunset sky with those colors. Now I'm going to go ahead and peel off my mask, and this is always my favorite part because I love seeing those crisp lines, those straight lines all around my card, and I love this little sunset colors with that white frame around it. Now it's a tiny bit crooked, which bothers me a little bit, but you're not even going to notice because I'm going to go ahead and stamp these leaves all around the outside, and I'm using my black VersaFine ink, and this is a pigment ink, so it goes on a little bit more opaque, gives you a really nice crisp black image, which is what I'm going for. But you do want to be careful because it is a pigment ink, and it's going to take a little bit longer to dry than a dye ink, so you want to make sure not to get it on your fingers and not to get smudges on your card. So that's the only thing you want to think about when you're using this ink. Otherwise, it's perfect for a silhouette kind of stamping like I'm doing here. And I just love that frame of black leaves all around that sunset ink blending. I think it really helps the colors pop, and it gives it something a little different and unique. So I've gone ahead and I've embossed the sentiment, and I've embossed it on a strip of black cardstock. I'm just adding it with some foam adhesive, and then I'm going to pop this whole panel up on my card base, and that's going to finish this card. You could add some more Nuvo drops or sequins, but I really liked just that contrast of black against the colors, and so that finished my card for today. So this is 3 ways to use one stamp set. I hope it's given you some inspiration. Please keep hopping. I have a link to the next person in my description below. Be sure to remember to comment on all of the videos. More comments is more chances to win prizes. And thanks so much for joining us on this hop. If you found someone that inspires you, please consider supporting them and subscribing. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.